just received an offer yesterday, and now
Yay!
we're leveraging it for offer number 2. So I'm like, woohoo!
Awesome. That's a great way to start the live.
Oh, well, hello. Welcome, everybody. Well,
Hello, everybody.
this is the reality behind the scenes where we love presenting on what we do, but man, oh man, when our clients start, clicking with the results, it's like, it's magic.
It's kind of like must-see TV. I mean, it is like real time. It's like a reality show.
Exactly.
We can have our own reality show, I think.
What's that, Jen?
We have our own reality.
All right. Welcome, everyone, to our LinkedIn Live. It is October 3rd, and I have the amazing Claire Davis and Jennifer Sethry here with me. I'm Gina Riley, and today this panel is going to be talking about soft skills and how that relates to landing your next job. So as you're navigating interviews, you're navigating networking conversations, etc., there's things that you'll want to be tuning into related to soft skills. And our friend, Lindsay Dowd, calls those power skills. And the reason why I like that reference is because I believe the hard skills are the soft skills. They're hard to implement unless you're well practiced and a mature individual. And also it's hard to express that when you're communicating without just saying, well, I'm a team player. We're going to talk today about how you demonstrate that through your storytelling versus just, coming out of the chute in a cover letter or in your resume with words that don't mean anything without the storytelling behind it. So that's what we're going to do. Claire, would you like to just do a brief introduction of yourself, who you are? Oh, you're on mute. Come back.
Well, I've only been doing these lives for about 6 years, so I'm almost there, guys. I'm almost there.
It's all good.
Maybe this will be my riff. But listen, if you have been seeing the buzz about the boot camp that we've been doing, and then the boot camps coming up in the future for Intry careers, this is part of the core of where we begin when it comes to putting together that personal brand that will actually very literally support you through your career growth. So I'm so excited to be here with Jennifer and Gina and all the other incredible coaches involved in this amazing opportunity for you guys. So first, if we haven't met yet, I'm Claire Davis, and I run Traction Resume, which is a resume writing agency for people in the medical sales and healthcare industries. The reason I do it is I wish more glamorous than the story I'm about to tell you, but in short, I was a recruiter first and then went into the industry myself and went through 5 layoffs. So there's really no more calling more specific than when you're a recruiter and then you have to put the things you've been coaching others on into practice for your own career. So I'm really excited to be here. Soft skills are a huge component of how we help position people, whether they are looking to get into the industries where they want to be seen, whether they want to pivot out of an industry and into a new one, or if they're coming back and maybe they haven't needed a resume for 25 years and they've always been walked into great positions because they knew somebody on the inside. So wherever you guys find yourself, this is, buckle up the next 45 minutes that we're going to talk about these things. They apply to almost every single situation in your career.
Love it.
Right?
What'd you say?
I said, no matter what the level, right?
Yeah.
If you're entering or, you're at the top.
Exactly. It's funny because many times when people come to us and they say, what are the right words I need to have on my resume? Well, the truth is there's no right words, right? The buzzwords and the power words and things other than the power skills that we're talking about that we referenced with Lindsay. But when it comes to power words, it's almost like putting the cart before the horse. Because as you'll find with everything we're going to talk about today, it all is really centered around one specific thing, and that's your target. So if you take like medical sales resumes and you take getting into healthcare and medical sales, even back in the 90s, generally what I would see come across my desk would be documents that do showcase the wins that these incredible people have made. But what happens is we tend to be then comparing ourselves apples to apples because we're not just being judged on the wins that we had previously. it's almost asking too much of the hiring person, the hiring manager, to say, okay, now you extrapolate whether or not you think I will be able to do that here. So that's really why I love talking about soft skills, because it really leans into what does your target care about? And how do you position yourself as not just someone who struck gold before and did incredible things in the past, but how are you actually uniquely prepared to bring that method forward into whatever industry or company you're looking to go to next? So, what are your thoughts, Gina? I feel like you also start with that target in mind very specifically.
I do. Thank you, Claire. But I would love to give Jennifer a quick chance to introduce herself as well. And Jennifer, when you introduce yourself, would you also, like Claire did, explain why you think soft skills or power skills are important? Why are we talking about this today?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. So I'm Jennifer Sethry. I am the CEO of Intry Careers, and we started out as taking resumes and turning them into applicant-ready resumes, right? And addressing the bias more than the content of the resume that gets through applicant tracking system software. And we've expanded our platform to include the boot camp. We have a new launch of software that's coming out soon. I'm really excited, but I can't tell you about it yet. And then we have, outplacement alternatives that we've been working on and doing, and they are pretty awesome. But I don't want to make it like the Intry promo, right? But, for me, when I think about hard skills and soft skills, I think of hard skills that are the puzzle pieces, and soft skills are the glue that holds it all together.
Ooh, Claire and I both went, ooh.
I love a good puzzle analogy. That's a great one. Yes, I agree. So maybe let's first differentiate it. Maybe, Jennifer, if you want to jump in here. In terms of specific hard versus soft skills, let's kind of give everybody just sort of a baseline of, examples of each.
What we're talking about. Well, Jen, you're a CEO. You have been a CEO a number of times. When you're interviewing people, what are some of the things you're listening for that give you an indication they have the soft skills that they will apply and implement when they do their work?
That's such a good question. Okay, so, I think like when let's just say you make the top 5, right? We already know that you have the hard skills, right? Like you have the technical expertise, right? So, if you're a marketing person and you are in digital marketing, we know you're going to have the digital marketing experience, and you're going to understand SEO, and you're going to understand funnels, and you're going to understand the cost per click and all of that stuff. Conversely, like if you're in healthcare sales, right? You're going to, let's just say it's a SaaS model, or if it's a device, you're going to understand the sales cycle. You're going to understand all of those things that need to be done in the sale, understanding your product, all of that. The soft skills to me is the emotional intelligence. How do you communicate with other people? How do you communicate about yourself? How do you communicate with the people that are around you? And honestly, like for me, I mean, like pre-COVID, now sort of getting back into it, but like, if I'm hiring a really significant player, I used to always take them to lunch or dinner because I like to see, how they interacted with the servers, and if they thought they were more important than somebody else, that was like I was like, that's a deal breaker. Like that's a reason why I wouldn't hire somebody, because if you are I mean, there is a hierarchy, right? But it doesn't mean that you talk down to or you treat people differently that aren't at the same executive level that you are. Like that's a deal breaker. And for me, that's a soft skill, understanding and recognizing the people around you and how you communicate with them. Like I sort of think, and maybe you guys are going to think this is an insane analogy, but I sort of think right now, like as the market has started to shift, that soft skills have sort of become like the digital currency. Before it was like it was a nice to have, and now I think it's a need to have. And I'm not sure that there's a clear understanding of that by people who are in the market currently looking for a job, or if they're going to be in the future looking for a job or making a transition. And the soft skills, I think, are particularly important when you're looking about switching careers.
Oh my gosh.
Pivot.
Yes. All right. So I'm going to take a slightly different angle, completely supportive of everything that you both said. What
I love
no, I'm just going to build on it, but go from a different angle. So, so in my coaching practice with executives who are making these career transitions, we start with literally who they are so they can bring that to the party when they communicate. So back to what you're saying, Jen, is, you know, how they're doing what they do, and is that convincing enough to get a job offer? So how we do what we do ties to our natural strengths. So a lot of people in the audience are familiar with Strengths Finder. Those are our natural talents. It's not our personality. It's the way that we execute. It's the way that we think. It's the way that we build relationships, and we're all unique. So if you understand your strengths and then you wrap it together with what you value, which is the why you do what you do, when you combine those and have that seep into your storytelling, it can add the oomph, the power that you need behind your messages to then instill confidence and trust in the people that you're trying to gain a job offer from.
I really love that you start with the how, because I find that when we are on the job market, regardless of level, I mean, we work with mostly people who've been in their industry for 10 to 15 years. So, if you were to describe like your favorite boss, you probably wouldn't describe like, oh, yes, they have this XYZ certification and they have this incredible training and they always submitted, they always use this particular program to manage the team. That's not how you describe your favorite boss, right? Your favorite boss is probably going to be described by the soft skills that they employed that made you love to work with them. Like the way that they did business that was so engaging and inspiring and motivating for the team to really go to bat every single day in whatever market that they're in. And I find that it's so important to remember that this is part of our story and part of the reason people will hire us. It's not just those historical wins. It's the how you do business that people love you for.
So I just want to add on to that a little bit, and I promise it's not a total non sequitur. But when I am a research addict, you guys know this, right? I like to dive deep into different topics. And so when I look at this, and this is something I track, right? So like the World Economic Forum said in a report, I don't know, like a week or two ago, that some of the three most things that people are going to be looking for in hiring in 2025 is going to be critical thinking, problem solving, and emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, soft skills are the things that really make us human, and they're irreplaceable, right? Like you can replace somebody that has some of the hard skills, but the soft skills is harder to replace. And sometimes it's harder to identify. And I think, I was in a situation recently where I saw someone's soft skills at play. I'm not going to say who, but because they were so adept at it, right? So adept at it, that they were able to sort of bridge this gap, right? Between someone who was coming out of college and maybe didn't have a lot of experience and someone who was really senior. And there was a lot of friction between the two, and who were both really, really smart. But it was like one person was speaking, I don't know, Chinese, and the other person was speaking German. They just could not connect, and it was causing a lot of problems in the department. And so the senior VP came in and was like, hey, and really it was a learning experience for everything. And I think what I learned from that story is soft skills can help bridge the gap when there's dissonance, when you're in the interview, right? And if you're interviewing, like, I don't know how many times I've been interviewed multiple times by multiple people, and there's always one who just wants to poke at you.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're looking for a reaction from you. And having a grip on your soft skills and how to understand how to navigate that is sometimes the difference between you getting a job and not getting a job, because they all circulate, they all take notes, they all circle back. And that person is supposed to poke at you because they want to see how you're going to react in a difficult and challenging situation. And especially with so many people still working remote and you do things on Zoom, you don't get to have those one-on-one, really interpersonal conversations, right? So they have to sort of drill down more quickly to kind of filter in or filter out who they think is going to be the best culture fit with their team. So, okay.
Absolutely. And jumping back to what you were saying about the soft skills being the differentiator, there's a little bit of math and science behind this. So in the book Executive Presence and then the subsequent studies that have been done, the estimation based on the research is 74% of what is going to get you the attention you need to get interviews is about 74%. So those, I call that table stakes. If you're in an interview process, you've been determined, like Jennifer said, to have that minimum bar qualifications. That is not enough. Minimum qualifications isn't enough, especially to land a CXO role. And so the other 26% is, again, how you execute with your other skills, team building skills, ability to read the room. And I'm speaking on executive presence in a few days in Rhode Island. I've got my notes up for about executive presence, which is what I'm going to talk about. And the thing that a lot of us work on, people like Claire and I, when we're doing our coaching, is we're also reading the client and giving real feedback, hard feedback about how people are showing up and how they're speaking about their expertise. And so to have executive presence is another way to look at how you're showing up. Things like how you speak. You need to have superior speaking skills. It's one of the top aspects of executive presence. The ability to read the room, the ability to adapt to what is happening in the situation with grace, the ability to make decisions and be decisive without steamrolling over people. So there's stories behind all the different aspects of executive presence that you could actually infuse into your storytelling without saying, I'm a decisive leader, or I really know how to read the room. Tell us through your storytelling, not through a statement like that. Claire, what do you think?
So I really resonate with this. And I want to call out the elephant in the room, because if anybody else is sitting here and thinking, okay, but I don't know what my actual soft skills are. Like, how do you know if you're an expert at reading the room? And how do you know, right? Because what you're saying, Gina, is absolutely critical to understand, but also sometimes the hardest information to get out of ourselves. And so if anybody listening, like put in the chat what you feel is a soft skill that you might have, or that you're curious that you may or may not have. And here's how I kind of think of this in 3 specific ways on figuring out how to find them. Because the thing is that soft skills are so incredibly important. And I find that they're also sometimes the most difficult to pin down. And often it's because when things come really easy to us, like a soft skill, like a personality trait, like a way we relate naturally to others, they just sort of seem like common sense. Or doesn't everybody kind of operate this way? Or, yeah, but I mean, that's not a big deal. No one would be impressed with the fact that I can read the room. Yes, they will. Sometimes, and here's the thing, is we kind of assume that because we can do this well, that everybody else can too. But in reality, what comes natural to you, if you're listening today, what comes natural to you is usually remarkable to other people. But you don't view it that way, because for you, it's just kind of the general, normal, run-of-the-mill way that you would do business and operate every single day. So there are 3 ways I think about how to find out what are these soft skills for you, because often when we're so close to things like this and they're just so natural, we miss them. It's like we've got blinders on. So the first one is, what do you get complimented on often in business? And usually people take compliments sometimes really well. Sometimes we kind of brush them off because we want to, remain feeling humble. But what do you get complimented on sort of often. And, you might even brush it off because you think, oh, like, well, that's not a big deal. It's a big deal. And if it's a repeat compliment that you get, write her down, because that's usually something that's unique to you in the way that you approach the world of business. The second thing is I do recommend taking a strengths finder. And I know there are like many personality and strengths assessments out there. I like Strength Finder because it allows you to get sort of a large swath of information in a very short amount of time. So you start to see, oh, I do have these top 5 themes that are really uniquely strengths of mine. And therefore, you can read a little bit more about how that's going to help or sometimes hold you back when you're trying to achieve your professional and personal goals. So check that out. I just recommended that to 2 people last week. I'm not a sponsor, but sometimes I really wish I was. The third thing is ask yourself what you enjoy and what comes easy to you. If you start to gather up in your mind hobbies, projects you don't mind doing that other people think is total drudgery or a bore, generally that's because you're getting pretty close to your zone of genius and expertise. And don't undervalue the things that you enjoy doing. Like, I'll give you a random one. When I was back in selling a radiology service, one thing that we didn't have very often were manuals to train the team. And that doesn't seem like a big deal, right? Because we all sort of communicate, and our boss was training us and he was great, but we didn't have a manual to necessarily say what to say to whom, how to walk through it, and then how to, distill it down into terminology that wasn't complex, that everybody could use. And it was one of my very favorite things to do, because I could take this entire like chaos of a library of supporting materials we had and distill it down into action steps. And I had never thought that I loved training before. I just knew that I liked to consolidate complex information and make it simple for others to follow. And voila, now that's what I do like most days of the week, is helping people with guides and templates and things like that. Things like, Jen and Gina, you do as well. But if I hadn't had that experience multiple times and had created training things and recognized that it didn't feel hard, it felt fun, I wouldn't have recognized it as a valuable soft skill. So have you guys ever found something like that in your life where, it was sort of a surprise that, something that seemed just so ordinary and fun to you was really a superpower?
So I want to pivot on that thought just a second, because I have also come across people where they think they have the superpower and they think they can read the room and they think that their EQ is at a certain level, but then it's not. And I think it's like, it's important for everybody, for listening to this, to be authentic with yourself and not to like want to mirror someone else's behavior or someone else's superpowers and absorb that as your own, because we all have our own superpowers. Like, we all have that special thing that makes us us. And I see a lot of times people who want to emulate people that they really admire in soft skills, but it sort of feels like they're putting on a Halloween costume, right? And I think it's important to identify. And I think, Claire, everything you said, that like, writing it down, the things that you were good at, the things that you get complimented on, I still work hard at taking a compliment. I don't know why it's a thing, but it's, my mom's like, just say thank you. And I'm like, thank you. And I think those are also like not great. Like, if you're in an interview and someone gives you a compliment and you're like, oh, thank you. They're like, what is something glitching right there? And so, I think you got to own it. You got to be graceful and be at peace with it, and ask other people around you what they think your superpower is or what it's not, like what you think it is. Like, I might think I'm a great golfer, and, my family will be like, yeah, you're adequate, but I wouldn't say you got like a killer swing or anything.
Yeah, that's a really great point. finding out and looking for those patterns, right? Because I'm sure there, like Gina said, you can develop soft skills, right? There are areas of business and of leadership maybe, and of maybe communication and interrelationship with people that if you want to develop those, you can. I think one that I get asked about a lot because we just tend to do a lot of video teaching is how do you show up confidently on video? Right? Like things like that. Like if you guys have been following Gina and Jen for the last year, you've seen them go hard into video content. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of practice, like anything else. But, we all didn't wake up being able to speak to a lens like we are now and
Right.
have a really meaningful conversation where you can feel the intention through the screen. But those reps that they're getting in, I mean, that's where soft skills can really be developed as well. One thing we should probably also focus on here too is that as with anything in your career, if you are focused on a specific specialty, a specific role in that specialty, you want to promote to a certain level, whatever it is, focusing intently on your target and what soft skills you think that what soft skills you feel they will find helpful. That situation will find valuable. Those are the ones to maybe add to your list. So if they're not in your top 5, if it's not a natural inclination for you to lead teams, but you know that you must in this role that you want for the impact you want to have, then maybe go and try and see if you can find some leadership coaching. And, speaking of that, I know a couple people who are great at leadership coaching. So stay tuned to these lives. You'll see even more of them.
Well, one thing that I think a lot about is how to demonstrate our soft skills through our storytelling. And Claire, you're a master of infusing that through the written word, through Traction Resume with the way that you describe people and how they get results.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get past all of those gates and we're actually interviewing, how do you tell your stories in a way that really showcase your soft skills? So I put together this morning a couple of slides to demonstrate what one of my clients did. And what I want to preface with is if you do research on a company's values, that is how they profess that they show up as a culture. So whether or not they actually do it, they say what they do, that's another discussion for another day. But let's assume that a company's espoused values is the type of person they also want to integrate into their culture. It doesn't mean that they don't want diversity, but they want people to behave certain ways. And that's how our values, show up. I'm going to attempt to screen share if I can. How do I do that, Valeska?
You're doing it.
Am I sharing? Oh, I clicked on it. You all can see. Okay. Not the prettiest slide in the world. However, it's going to help me prove my point. So on this first slide, and I realize Facebook is now Meta, but a few years ago, I was working with a very senior engineering leader who was going through a very rigorous interview process, as the Googles, the Facebooks, and the Apples have. And there's a lot of public information you can find about their values and how they interview people. And they spend a concentrated effort listening for the values that they state that they have. And so you'll notice here that a couple of years ago, it was focus on impact, move fast, be bold, be open, and I can't read the other one because the slide thing.
Build social value.
So within my client's storytelling, I wanted him to be thinking about this underneath the storytelling. So not to show up and say, I really focus on impact. The stories he will share are going to show the impact, and the results, the quantifiable results, will showcase that impact as well. So this second slide that I put together is also showcasing at that time Facebook's manager behaviors they were expecting. And so my client was thinking about communicating how he helps people. And the top 3 of the 7 that were important to him to showcase were showing care by understanding what the most important for each person's experiences at Facebook, supporting people and finding opportunities to develop and grow, wait for my story, based on areas of strength and interest, and then setting clear expectations and goals for individuals. So here is a very short economical story that my client was preparing to share that showcased some of these managerial aspects and the soft skills that he needed to communicate, even as an engineering manager, right? So he had an employee working for him, we'll call him Sam, and that person was a technical lead, and he was doing a lot of customer-facing system integration work. However, the obstacles that my client was facing in dealing with Sam was that customers of theirs were unhappy with the way that Sam was responding and how he was actually managing the project. My client really believed in giving people chances with really tight guardrails to improve. And so the actions that he took was working with that individual weekly, having weekly meetings, having goals and opportunities to succeed, along with getting that feedback. And ultimately, Sam wasn't able to rise to that occasion in this project manager role. But my client knew the value of that person's toolkit and knew that the technical expertise was not worth losing or letting someone go for. And so although that Sam wasn't successful in the role, that my client leveraged the technical skills and helped that person move into a different role and to where he would be then successful. So when we go back to the values that underpin what my client was trying to communicate, he was showing care and understanding about what was important to Facebook and customers, and at the same time was holding at his own principles of empathy and helping people find opportunities when they're not successful in the role that they're in, and then also being a strong leader and setting goals and keeping people accountable for those goals. And so I thought this was a nice little tight story. What do you think, Claire?
I love that. I think whenever you are lucky enough to be in a place where you have a leader that can recognize the soft skills or the kind of like strengths rather that could be better used or repurposed or more aligned, count yourself lucky. Gosh, I mean, like, what an incredible way to lead. I was really lucky to have a manager like that in my life. And unfortunately, we did all get laid. It was one of those layoffs sort of situations. One of the many. But one thing that I really appreciated about him was that he recognized the strengths that I had and also those that I didn't and those that I needed to work on so that I could show up better for our clients who needed the imaging and the softwares and the IR procedures that we offer. And I find that that's really rare. But if you do have the opportunity to help others to discover things about themselves or even to let them know, I recognize that you do this, this, and this really, really well. Please know that that is sometimes the rarest advice that we will ever get. And it's some of the most valuable. So I was really lucky to have a leader who did that for me. And I think that, even though we're talking about discovering our soft skills, for those that are listening, if you recognize remarkable talent, or if you recognize sort of strengths in others, let them know, tell them, thank them, use it for networking, like whatever you do, but don't keep it to yourself.
Absolutely.
So I want to just add to what you guys were saying. So when I was maybe college, but I had a mentor that introduced me, and I don't know if I'm saying this right, but VUCA, right? It's VUCA, and it started in like the early 80s, and it talks about, the V is for volatility, the U is for uncertainty, the C is for complexity, and the A is for ambiguity. And one of the things that they mentored me on, they're like, if you can be in a professional environment and you can show your adaptability to be able to pivot to the changing environment, your value and your emotional intelligence becomes exponentially more important. And I think the reason that just popped into my head right now is that I feel like that's sort of where we are right now in our world, right? It's a little volatile, it's a little uncertain, it's extremely complex, and there's a lot of ambiguity. And I think, understanding that and being able to adapt, like an example to me is during COVID, when restaurants, had delivery services or people set up remote working and for schools so we could try to get, life back to normal. To me, there was a huge, not just hard skill set there, but a really massive EQ from people in leadership who were executing it, to show the adaptability. And to me, that's what circles back to that acronym. So
I love that. So the three of us have talked about the importance of soft skills and what some of those soft skills are. And I haven't checked the chat to see. There were a few people that had mentioned some of their soft skills like empathy. And if folks who are tuning in right now or even tune in later for the after show, please feel free to put in, some of those soft skills. So why don't the three of us talk a little bit about ways that either we've helped people develop those soft skills. I've got two leaders and managers right here on the hook, or how we've helped clients figure those things out for themselves. So Jen, why don't we start with you, because you've been in the driver's seat as a CEO. I'm sure you've mentored tons of talent over your career. And I imagine that you've had people that have worked for you that are incredibly technically talented and yet lacked some of the soft skills that enabled them to truly connect with people and engender trust. So what are some ways that you've helped coach people? Maybe you could pick the type of soft skill that you worked on and then what you did to help them work through it.
There's one that really comes to mind, like really strongly. And no names or companies or examples, but this person was one of the most technically gifted people I've ever met. But social skills were negligible. And, there were a myriad of different reasons why. But I think, I didn't want to lose this person. And I also needed to manage sort of the backlash that was building because they just couldn't communicate effectively with their team. And one of the things that I guess, I don't know where I heard it, but was to really meet him where he was and to understand, the why behind it and to get him to sort of acknowledge that this behavior, wasn't acceptable and people didn't understand how to relate to him. And so, I was like, what does this mean to you when you hear it? And he was like, I had no idea. Right. Because, very sort of tunnel vision. And so we ended up bringing in a coach, on top of my personal mentoring to really help him identify what were the triggers. And there were a lot of them, but to have a response that he could articulate when something like that was happening, maybe that was a trigger. Right. And then, we got permission from him to let other people on his team understand some of these things. And it created, a much better working environment. And then we just found different ways for them to communicate and work where it wasn't an abrasive situation. Some things we could fix and some things, we could coach and some things we couldn't. But I think in other people that have mentored and people have mentored me early on in my career, one, I started out in sales in my career and I was pretty good at it. And one of my mentors then took me aside and he's like, Jennifer, he goes, that's good. But like, sometimes you're like a bull in a china shop. And I was like, well, that's, I really don't like being called that. That's great. And, so he took, sat me down and gave me some examples and I was like, okay, you know what? I didn't see that. And, I generally am a very observant, sort of self-actualized person, but, I'm older. That's a lot of that stuff comes with time. And so for him to sit me down and to be like, hey, you're really great at this, but sometimes the wake behind you, and I think I was like 19 when I got my first sales job. Right. So I was like, I'm just closing the deals. Let's just keep doing this. And he's, well, that's great. And honestly, he really laid the foundation for my career and how I listen to people and how I sit down and try to be empathetic. and understand. And so now when I mentor people, I try to lead with that and understand. And it goes back to that first person is to meet them where they are. And sometimes you come across somebody that just isn't going to be a fit, no matter what you want to do and how much you want them to fit in. And that's a hard conversation to have. But it's necessary because it can have a ripple effect across your team and your organization.
Yes, soft skills can actually be that make or break, especially in a leadership role. It can help enhance a culture or damage a culture. And when we damage culture, we also damage the opportunities that the company can be taking advantage of, or the successes people can have professionally on that team. So the soft skills really are that edge that a candidate can bring to their job search process. So Claire, you could take this either direction. What do how have you helped maybe coach a client that you could see wasn't showing up very well? We'll anonymize it completely, or otherwise.
So it brings to mind a client who is one of my favorites. And, it's funny because I think that some of my favorite people are also the most challenging personalities. And I think that I enjoy that because I really like understanding the deeper motivations of others, and also challenging myself in how to be able to relate and then make an impact, like you said, Jen, where they're at. Right. So how they receive information the best. So it reminds me of this one client, and he was, we're kind of having a wrap session after we had done some interview coaching, and we had built his brand, and everything looked really sharp. It was all on target. It was all, in his case, geared toward an orthopedic director position. And he just wasn't getting the brass ring. Like he would get through the process. We got him those interviews. The resume was working. We were networking into the opportunities. He was getting those interviews, but then he was getting stuck at the third. Like he was always the bridesmaid, never the bride, right? So, one day we had a interview session. And so we talked for an hour. We kind of talked through what he said, what they said, what his feelings were about that, how he would like to be perceived, and recognized that he was aggressive, really aggressive. And not in the I can't wait to take this job way, but in the way that he talked about his result and in the questions he was asking. And, I think one soft skill that is undervalued is the ability to take well-intentioned advice, right? The willingness to absorb feedback, sift through what makes sense, consider the source where it's coming from. Does this person have a credible, is this person credible to give me this kind of feedback? And then to take it and run with it. And so the first conversation we had, I tiptoed around it a little bit because I knew that just coming right out and saying, you're a little bit too domineering in your approach wasn't going to be heard. But we worked through some phrasing. We worked through some, when you said this, what was the response? How would you like it to go? Try that. And sure enough, by the next month, he ended up landing his next role, and he took it. He finaled. And it was just one of those things where, sometimes the soft skills we have, they're not all great. Some of the soft skills we have need a little bit of a tweak. And so in his case, that was one area where, he was able to change the way that he was conveying his ideas so that his target could hear them better, because he had all the goods. He was the type that had achieved similar results for other industries and big results, big multi-million-dollar results. But the way that he was conveying the information wasn't working.
You mean, oh, sorry, Jen.
I was just going to say that just sounds like you created a workable feedback loop that didn't alienate him. Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's really important. If you have people in your life, if you don't have coaches or you don't have someone like, Claire that can do that, who are the people that are honest? Can you take their feedback as constructive and helpful, but getting that feedback loop and being able to trust the source that's giving you the feedback is really important, and always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Then you gotta kind of do a self inventory and an inventory of your soft skills. And to what both of you have said multiple times today, is review your story and how you're conveying your story. Because if it happened once, maybe it's one thing, but if it's happening multiple times, it's something else. And that's what I'm going to just say, like, this is a really great example of what we do in our career accelerator, right? Is unpack all of this and help you create your story and your UVP across the board and across platforms, to really peel it back.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's one of my favorite parts of what we're doing in the career accelerator. As you know, I'm a little biased. I love what you said earlier, Jen, about curiosity and how you first approached your employee with a genuine openness to learn about where they were coming from. And I believe that if all of us approach these challenging, difficult situations, navigating interviews, navigating networking conversations, working around even the feelings we get when we get ghosted, all these things pile on a level of emotion that starts to build and build and build. And I've worked with people that are coming from a place of deficit, where they've been out of work for kind of a while. They may have been part of mass layoffs, super senior, trying to find that one job at the top of the triangle that there's less of. And so sometimes we bring some baggage into these interview conversations that we need to leave behind.
Yeah.
And that goes against the soft skills that we may really want to communicate. So back to curiosity, if we all just enter our ecosystems of these conversations with wondering, what does that other person care about? What are they thinking about? What keeps them up at night? Then we have something that we can talk about here and problem solve together. And that's just what I found to be the most valuable piece of advice, I think, for a lot of my clients as a standard across the board, is when you go enter that conversation, lead with curiosity, and then back into the stories that help amplify how you can solve that kind of problem that's keeping those leaders up at night.
I have a specific one for both of you. So, what I find so remarkable about each of you is that you both have this like insane level of incredible collaboration. Like, there is something to be said about being put on a team and being able to cohesively move forward with everybody despite all the personalities and the scenarios that there are. But I think that a soft skill that sometimes goes unsung is, do you know how to loop in the people that you need to get something done and then spark that movement forward? I find that to be similar with both of you. Both of you have this like incredible toward collaborating. Yes. Yeah. We can do this, right? We can do this on a live, can't we?
This is completely unscripted, people. We did not come with a script.
First of all, thank you. And I think it's, I learned that really early on from my first mentor, that said I was a bull in a china shop. Right. And it was, like a sucker punch at the time, but it really changed, I think, the trajectory of my career. And, I sold television advertising when I was 19, right? Long story about why I was doing that. And I wasn't that happy about it, to be honest. But I had to make money, and, my dad was really sick. And so I was like, okay, well, I'm like, hey, we should put together like a show. We should put together like a dance show. And the general manager was like, you're going to put together a dance show? I'm like, yeah, we'll do this. We'll do it at this nightclub, and then we'll get sponsors, and it'll be great. And he was like, okay, I'll give you this time slot. I had never put together a television. I had no idea what I was doing. But I was like, how hard can this be? Like, this show's on and it's so stupid. Like, we could make this exponentially better. And you know what? It turned out to be like one of their best shows. Which is just an idea. And it's like, that's where like it comes from. But what I was getting back with that was it worked because we collaborated. Because I went to the producers and I was like, I have this idea. What do you think? Like, and here are the sponsors that I've talked to, and they said they would do this. And if we looked at what we would charge per 30-second spot, we could do this and we actually make more money, blah, 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 blah. And we could repeat it. And then it's like, and they were like, well, that makes sense. But it was the collaboration and understanding the skills the people that you were talking to that you needed, and how what you brought to the table mattered, and sort of closed the loop with things. And I still think that's, I still think this is part of the soft skill story, right? Is the ability to see other people, the ability to check yourself when you need to be checked, and having honest, authentic conversations, with yourself. I mean, I have conversations with myself all the time, and to be like, so how did that go? And then I'm like, well, I could have done better. What,
Yeah. Well,
but
that's so important too, because let's face it, when you're at the management level, the director level, many people expect you to just magically have all the answers. Like many people expect themselves, like they put the pressure on themselves to suddenly feel like I have all the answers. And I think that's why sometimes if you're a second line leader, sometimes it can feel a little bit siloed because you feel like you must always have the playbook. I was talking to a client about this yesterday, and we decided it was kind of like being dropped on a desert island, and people assume that you have the map drawn out. And I think that wise leaders, people who really do recognize that they didn't get to that second line leadership, they didn't get to that leadership position because they didn't know how to figure it out, right? Like they figured it out, or they worked hard, or they got the reps in, or they upskilled, whatever it is. We don't come into this world with all the answers. There was something that you did. There's a way that you do business that led to the hard skills that you gathered and the results that you've won. And very likely, those are the soft skills we're talking about. So I think, to kind of bring it home, the hard and the soft skills, it does take a balance. It does require
100%.
a focus. Yeah, it does require a focus on your target, right? So what is needed and what is needed for where you want to go, and bringing those together to create that story of not just the big wins that you got, not just the wonderful brass ring that you were able to grasp, but how you did it and how you intend to do it in the future. That is something that people will follow.
I'm going to tack on to that, and I just put this in the chat, that the soft skills, we'll get Lindsay's word in there again, the power. The soft skills power the hard skills. What are hard skills? Those are the industry skills that you've accumulated and the functional expertise. Are you a marketeer? Do you know sales? Are you an HR leader? So those are the functional areas that we accumulate our knowledge and expertise. And then we need to explain how we apply our industry and functional expertise through the storytelling with the soft skills. Are we good at gathering information from people one-on-one? Are we great at having team discussions and pulling out the best ideas? There's a model I use. It's called the adaptive leadership model. And there's 6 principles of adaptive leadership. And the one I love the most is the 6th one. And it's called bringing in unheard voices, or voices from the fringe, if you will, according to the model. And I love the stories from my leaders when we go through this model and we pull out language that explains their leadership approach. The leaders that are like, I've had CEOs say, I go meet with, this is a smaller company, everyone on my team all the way down to the shop floor, and I am gathering intel that informs my strategic decision making, and I ensure that those people are heard and that they see that I make changes based on the intel that I gather. And so this is beyond strategy. This is beyond tactical leadership. This is really getting human with people and finding out what they need and what they want, so you can make an environment and a culture that people want to work for, and that powers that engine. Are those soft skills and the relatability you have with people. Jen, do you want to, we're almost at time. Do you want to bring it home with some thoughts?
So, well, first of all, I appreciate everyone who's engaged and has asked questions, right? Because it's we come to these lives with a set of things that we think are important to talk about, right? And sometimes, the questions that you all ask, help us peel back the onion a little bit more and get even sort of deeper on subjects. But I think, not to get mushy, But, you know, I mean, you guys are really amazing and the best, I think, at what you do. And I don't say that lightly. And those of you who have watched, you know, these lives before know that I don't give gratuitous compliments because I'm just not wired that way. Doesn't mean I can't meet you at your level, but I'm not just going to give you a compliment, you know, because, right? And, you know, every time you guys do something, you show up, right? And, you know, when we were noodling the career accelerator and what does that mean? And what do we bring to people? And what is the value? And how can we change lives? You know, that's what I was thinking about, right? Is, you know, there's certainly a wonderful place to do extended coaching. And then there's the person that needs to get geared up faster and hit the ground running. And I think in this market, sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And those are all the things that we address, right? Is filling up what you need to do, how you need to do it, what you need to say. It's not theoretical, it's all actionable. And you know, we did that because we wanted to really change people's lives, and we wanted to clear up some misconceptions and things that are all over LinkedIn and other places that aren't accurate. And you know, we all spend a lot of time trying to filter through the truth and reality and bring people on board into these lives that keep it real and keep it authentic and keep it validated and clear. And so, you know, we have a wait list for the October boot camp. So if a spot opens up, we can let you know so you can add your name to that list. Or people, if they want to, they can sign up for the November one. I think there's only a few slots left because it's intimate. You guys, we only do between 10 and 12 people in these career accelerators. So it's a very intimate, personal experience, and it's pretty amazing, if I do say so myself. But not because of me, but because of all the people that do the coaching and do the resume building and do the networking and bring all of this together. So I think I'm grateful that you guys are here. I'm grateful that everybody showed up. And I hope that this helped everybody. I hope that we filled up your toolbox.
Well put. I'm so excited. And, you know, for those that know, they want to skip the line on all that. Let's be honest. The internet is full of advice of all kinds. You know, I love that there is a place where everybody is coming together who has been in this game a long time, who have tried things, and they have had to have worked to have that, to be wearing the coaching hat for more than 5, 6, 7 years. So I'm really excited about what this boot camp has brought. And I'm also equally impressed by the people who have joined, because they're the type that know that you can achieve your goals by paying down what you don't know, right? By investing in yourself and getting information, getting things checked off the list.
Right.
Trying to figure it out for months on end. So for those who are willing to really invest in themselves and make themselves and their career move a priority, I'm just really proud of them, because it shows a lot of that resilience that we kind of talked about. It also shows a willingness to grow and to learn. So bravo for everybody who's really taken the bet on themselves.
We do have a wait list for that. And so those are some of the people that you're talking about. The thing that I find so special and valuable about our career accelerator is it's really tough to get all of the information in one spot and in one go. And so it's not for the faint of heart, because it will blow your hair back. So it's all the moving parts to a career transition. And so is it 2 days and suddenly you'll roll into your next favorite dream job? No, you got a lot of work to apply the knowledge and the expertise that's been coalesced over years and years and years that we're delivering.
It's kind of like taking espresso. Career espresso.
Okay.
It is.
We're going to put career accelerator to the side. I like career. I'm on board. Can we buy that URL now? Stat.
Yeah. She's like, done.
Jen's already bought it. Wait.
Oh my gosh. So thanks y'all for being here. I guess I always get corrected. It's all y'all, 'cause it's plural. All y'all. But thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Oh my
Thank you.
gosh.
Please feel free to reach out and connect with us on LinkedIn. Send us a personalized note that you saw us here. We love connecting with people and we love helping. This is our way to do it.
Awesome. Thanks, guys, so much. It's going to be
Great.
really